Welcome back, everybody. Sometimes I have a rotating list of podcasts that I listen to, but there are two podcasts that I never miss. One of which, of course, my co-host, John Solomon, reports, and also the Doug Collins podcast. It is invaluable if you want to know what's happening in Washington, the dynamics of what's happening, even a little bit of culture thrown in. The podcast is fantastic. And the host of that podcast joins us now, Congressman. Welcome back to the show, sir. Great to see you.
Oh, man. It's always good to be with you. One of my favorite times of the week that I get to spend with y'all.
We love having you on, and I love your perspicacity of things that are happening in Washington, because you were one of those people who I vividly remember your probing and precise questions on Capitol Hill to anyone who came up there who was, a witness or someone giving testimony. And now we hear that one of Hunter Biden's partners at Rosemont Seneca, and who was also serving on the board of Burisma with Hunter at the time, is going to be answering questions, Devon Archer. If you could speak to those investigators, speak to those people in Congress who are going to be asking those questions, what would you tell them to ask?
I think, go beyond what we know. I think that's one of the key of good questions is ask the basic question. It's hear the answer, then take the answer and use it as, and I would say as a cross-examination, for an attorney out there listening, when you do a deposition, when you do a questioning, what you're trying to do is get beyond the answers that they're ready to give you. You need to get to the answers that they may not know, and which would prove that they didn't know something, or the answer that they knew and they've tried to skirt your question. That's what I would really look at here. And some of the things you got to look at is why, give the reason that you know of. Was there emphasis on Hunter Biden's connection to his father? Was there ever connections that you actually saw where Joe Biden actually was involved, or other members of the Biden family? And then take it, a step or two like that, and then just see where the answers are. Because I think sometimes you find more in what's said or more in what's not said that you can then follow up on.
Yeah, so true. And you did such a good job. You were one of those great interrogators when the Judiciary Committee was on the trail of something. There's going to be a big interview on Wednesday. Chris Wray is going to come back for the first time since we learned a lot. We've just recently learned about the FISA court ruling and all of the abuses, 278,000 Americans' phone records here. And we're learning today from one of your old colleagues, Jim Jordan, on your old committee, House Judiciary, that the FBI was involved in forwarding censorship requests from the Ukrainian government, a foreign power, to American big tech companies. The size and scope of the censorship machine that's been happening beneath our nose, and the FBI being directly involved. I wanted to get your reaction to that, and what sort of questions you'd like to see Chris Wray answer.
One, let's just start off, as I sit here with you and Amanda and say, I wish I was shocked. Unfortunately, I'm not. I mean, it's just this is the problem we're getting into, the point now to where it's almost like watching, the old horror movies. You watch them enough, you don't jump, when something happens. Well, unfortunately, now people are getting so used to the Department of Justice and the FBI in particular doing things like this, it's not causing the awe anymore. And when you've got mainstream media covering for them, which, by the way, you'll probably never see this, on any of their networks, which is concerning because whether we like it or not, a vast majority, especially older Americans, still get their news from the old night news, and they don't talk about this thing. In fact, I saw something that plays to this, John and Amanda, just the other day that said like 60 or 70% of people who got their just regular news through their local television news service had not really heard about some of these scandals. And this is a problem. When the FBI is acting as the agent for a foreign government to censor what is being put out by an American company, that is a problem. Look, the first couple of questions for Chris Wray, pretty easy. Why didn't you implement what we told you to 5 years ago, after the first FISA incident when we started seeing these abuses through Operation Crossfire Hurricane? Why did you not remove and put more in place the safeguards that we had talked about protecting the American citizens' rights and privileges in here? Still not taking away anything from terrorism and our keeping our nation safe, but having a system in which the FISA court is getting the honest answers and truthfulness from the FBI. He's just not done that. I've known Chris Wray a while. I've been one to call over 2 years ago that he needed to resign. Right now, I think he's just being stubborn and protecting the FBI. That's what I see.
Yeah. I want to shift gears and ask you about a few things that happened over the weekend, but they're just a long list of things that President Trump does out in the media. And there are similarities between the two of you, Congressman, because you are so beloved by the American people and Georgians because you just seem like a regular guy. You could be someone's neighbor. You could be someone's, fellow churchgoer. And there's an air of that to President Trump, obviously at UFC over the weekend. Yesterday, the reception he got from LAPD and LA Sheriff's Department, of course, his reception in East Palestine, inviting the South Carolina Children's Choir, Dairy Queen. The list goes on and on and on of these ways that President Trump connects with the American people at a very grassroots level. Is that something that you think is important to his campaign for the next, 16 months?
It is his campaign. In fact, if I was looking at this campaign, it's the thing that sets him apart. I know, and look, I know him. He loves to give speeches. I mean, he loves to get out there and tell everybody what's going to. But I will say this, just from a perspective, cut the speech in half and spend more time at the Dairy Queen. Spend more time at the restaurant. Spend more time when he's at the Palestine. When you see him connect with people, and for those of us who've had the opportunity to sit down with him, away from cameras, away from everything else, he comes across as very genuine. He is someone, you may disagree with him, you may not agree with most, but he'll ask you about your family. He'll ask how you're doing. He has that way. It goes back to that businessman mentality that he had. And that's what actually relates to people. I mean, when I see these, the other day, him handing out Blizzard. What's a Blizzard? Here, do you want one? And he starts handing them out. I mean, it's just, that's what, if I was another candidate, I'd be sitting there saying, oh, please, God, just put him back on stage. Because, at least they can fight when he's talking on stage. They can't fight that. And I think that's the big issue. When he shuts down picking South Carolina, that was just amazing to see. And, again, at this point in time in this election cycle, Donald Trump, this is his election on primary side to lose. Everybody else is playing catch up. And, DeSantis has spent a lot of money not moving the needle. Some of the others are. And all they can be hoping for is that for some reason Donald Trump wakes up one morning and says, I'm not going to run for president again, which is not going to happen. So his personality is what keeps him where he is.
Yeah, and it's been interesting watching him over the weekend. Now, when he goes into a community, he tailors his pitch to the concerns in that community better than any candidate I've seen in a while. In Nevada, he goes to Yucca Mountain. I know you don't want the nuclear waste up. Ron DeSantis, well, he voted for it. He goes to Iowa. He's got ethanol on the front line. He reminds people what Ron DeSantis voted on. His comfort level in being able to bring in an issue that matters to the local people, very different maybe than the Trump of 2015, 2016. He really seems to have a lot of the veteran skills of being on the campaign trail. The other candidates are still catching up to him in that category, aren't they?
Oh, I agree. Look, we tend to forget, and the left wants us to forget, the man was president for 4 years. Yep. Okay. He was, whatever, rookie, you want to call it, his first campaign of never been in, one, he had a life in the public spotlight. Number two, now he is getting better at taking what he did, what his accomplishments were, and how those relate, because he saw it every day in a new way while sitting in the Oval Office, and he's able to transfer that. But again, it is still amazing to me. We don't deny that this country is relatively split, and we see that division every day, which breaks my heart as an American. We've got to find solutions to the problems that we have. But when he walked into the UFC fight the other night, and then you see the picture of Joe Biden on the beach, okay, I'm just saying there's a problem here.
You rest your case.
Joe Biden's just sitting there checking his phone.
I'm done.
Yeah, no one's even trying to talk to him. You mentioned that Ron DeSantis has not managed to move the needle very much at all. Someone who has, Vivek Ramaswamy. There's a similarity also between him and President Trump in that they both have outside of the box ideas. Would he be an interesting candidate for VP?
It could be. I'm not sure anybody that's currently running for president would be the actual VP nominee, but it could be in that he has some stuff. He's also has some of that trait of a new candidate, and what we've seen out of him is some interesting ideas, things that you want to take. We've also seen some things that they're good ideas, but you can't do that as president. But that comes with a new candidate. But he does present a very fresh voice, I guess, and I think it's something to look at.
Yeah, he's an interesting candidate, and I think a lot of young conservatives think that he's very interesting. But Congressman Doug Collins, we appreciate you so much. Everybody, please go check out his podcast, The Doug Collins Podcast. Sir, thank you for your service to our nation, and as always, thank you for being here. We're going to take a very quick commercial break. After that, we've got Yitz Friedman. He's the communications manager at the American Accountability Foundation. We'll be right back.